And I think the moment I realised that actually, for the benefit of not only me, but this family, I've got to have some time away to do stuff for myself. And it took me a long time to really kind of like, for that to sink in. I would say a good couple of years of being a mum before I was prepared to have an hour away, and, you know, maybe even longer before I started enjoying that time and not feeling guilty. But now it's, you know, I absolutely have to have an amount of time a week where I exercise. Mentally, for me, it just changes everything. I feel so strong after doing some exercise. I feel like I can handle anything. And it's helped me so much. It really, really has, particularly through kind of lockdown and stuff like that, just having a bit of control, I think, where everything else is spiraling out of control. You know, having an hour a day to exercise 5 days a week has just been a godsend for me.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Slimming Stories. I'm your host, Claire Oldham West. Happy Valentine's Day. Are you feeling the love? Did that all come through the mic to you? Whether you're single, married, engaged, however you are, on Valentine's Day in 2021, I just want to reassure you that we've got a great guest that's going to really lift you up today. Kirsty Lee has had a great transformational journey with her weight loss. She's managed to change her dress size from a size 16 to 18 to a size 10. And this episode today is a bit of a deep dive into body image, what it means to not only lose the weight, but after weight loss, the self-talk that is part of the process to accepting the change that has happened with your body and making sure that you're able to nourish yourself, not only from a nutritional point of view, but with positive self-talk that will help you and guide you along the way when you are at target and when you have changed your body shape so dramatically, which Kirsty has done. If you go over and check her out on Instagram, she's got some amazing before and after photographs. And I love Kirsty's journey. You know, we talk about motherhood and what it's like to be working full time in kind of a high pressure job, but also wanting to show up at work to make sure that we are heard as women in the workplace. So it's a very female episode. And if you're a guy listening to this, then by all means keep listening. I'm sure you've got partners that this will allow you to come in from a female perspective, because it can be hard, can't it? It can be hard when we're trying to juggle everything as mums, as people that work full time, and then taking that little chunk of time for ourselves. And we discuss this, and Kirsty goes into detail about this because she explains that her husband has made sure that she has given this time to put aside for herself for self-care. And that's what we need, isn't it? To be surrounded by friends and family that see our dreams and ambitions when it comes to our weight loss and fitness goals and support us with that, which is absolutely fabulous. Such a lovely episode to give out on Valentine's Day. And if Valentine's Day just sends a chill down your spine for whatever reason, maybe you're not into it, maybe you're single and it's all a bit too much, then I hope that you really do home into Kirsty's talk around self-love and self-care. And you don't have to be in a relationship for that. And you don't have to wait for Valentine's Day to practice that either. So it is introducing Kirsty Lee to her episode of Slimming Stories. Welcome, Kirsty.
Hi.
So pleased that you've been able to join me. I know that you're a very busy lady, and, you know, I've just gone through your Instagram account just before I started the recording, and my goodness, I mean, you are absolutely stunning before and after your transformation. And I can see that you're really passionate about your fashion and your dress sense. And oh my, you know, I think looking at your Instagram account, you've got one of those accounts where I can so understand why you've got such a large following on Instagram, because I think visually, everything that you post, from your food to your transformation photographs, they are so inspiring. And I think for people on a journey, on a weight loss journey, they can come over and look at what you're doing and hopefully take an ounce of that and go away with it and be inspired with their with their own journeys. So, I mean, where do we even start by going to this podcast to, I guess, take that inspiration to give to our listeners to move their journey forward?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much. That's really kind. And I think my Instagram page has been the definitive reason why it's worked for me this time, along with other kind of driving forces. But I definitely think setting up a separate Instagram account where I can just follow lots of different similar people to me that are on their own journey and get inspiration from them and feel motivation and see what they've done and what they've achieved over a certain amount of time really motivated me. And it really held me to account as well. It was almost, it became a sort of something that I really enjoyed in terms of social media anyway, and creating posts and trying new recipes definitely helped me this time for it to be, the last time, if that makes sense. I think when I've done Slimming World so many times before, and I've kind of lost a stone or 2 stone and then spent the next 6 months celebrating, going out and feeling great, and then basically putting it all back on.
Yeah.
And I think, I used to cook the same meals. It was, always the same Sunday roast, and big bolognese was kind of my signature go-to. And I just think I got bored, and I used to kind of crave that weigh-in treat. Whereas now I don't, because I try and do at least 2 new meals that I've never tried before a week, and just try and mix it up as much as possible. And I'm by no means a chef, I won't do anything that's kind of got more than 2 or 3 steps. And, I try and keep it as simple as possible. But I definitely think that's really helped me, keeping it interesting. And I definitely don't feel like I'm on a diet. No. And I certainly don't look forward to that, it's weigh day, I must have a takeaway or I must have a treat, because I feel like I just don't feel like I'm kind of missing out on anything with this diet.
No. Having those years of being on and off a diet, on and off, and in terms of the accountability, do you feel that on your Instagram account you're able to show up as your true self? Because I know that with friends and family, if you're anything like me, they will have seen you being on and off diets throughout the years.
Yeah.
And I guess the very notion that you're going to be talking about a new momentum, a new weight loss plan, and you're hearing the size of, right, okay, yet again another diet. But yeah. I feel that on social media you can just show up. These are strangers, and you can be honest and open. Is that the case that you found, that you can just be yourself?
Yeah, definitely. And people on Instagram are so supportive. I've got some of the most wonderful followers who I've never met, and I feel like I know them so well, and they're my biggest advocates, they're my biggest cheerleaders, and it's just, honestly, it's amazing. I've never felt more supported and more encouraged. And even when, and I try to be as honest as I can on my Instagram posts with, when we all fall off the wagon, and, we all have those days where, I like to have a little drink. When I have a drink, I have a drink. I don't have one. I'll have a bottle of Prosecco, I just think on Instagram and having those followers, they just accept you for who you are, and they support you in the tough times, and they cheer you on in the kind of the real positive times. And that for me has been a huge help, and has really inspired me to also keep going, and to not kind of, fall off the wagon as much as I have previously, and to see this out and actually achieve the goal that I've set for myself for once. I don't say it enough. I am really proud of myself for doing what I've done, because I think, we're our own biggest critics. I put so much pressure on myself as a working mum. It's everything has to be perfect. And I think, following lots of different people has kind of opened my mind to, you can't do everything, and sometimes you are going to fail at stuff, and that's okay, because you can just dust yourself off and get back up. And one bad day of eating isn't going to delete the 2 years of hard work that I've done. And it's just not letting one day turn into a week, and then a month, and then before you know it, you've stacked it all back on again, and then you just think, what's the point? Might as well.
That's right.
And then it's like you don't want to go back to Slimming World because you dread to see the scales, and it's just, it spirals out of control, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it does. And I think just to talk a bit about being a working mum. So I've been at work full time since my son was 5 months. And I think I think that's probably the first time I've actually said that on the podcast. And even saying that out loud feels, the judgment call of 5 months. Your son was only 5 months, but that's what, I was a single mum at the time, and going back to work at 5 months, working full time, and also having, I guess, a job where I was working away. I was having to do presentations, and being around mums that had a totally different lifestyle to me was kind of a pressure. I felt a pressure to be a very mumsy mum, and I knew I wasn't a mumsy mum. I can remember my son saying to me, I think it was only about 4, "Mum, can you come to school looking pretty?" Because I would be in, I guess, what he would see as some sort of uniform, because I would wear, I would go into work and I would wear the same things, and it was often be black and dark. So he even recognised I was very different to the mums at the school gate. So how did you find yourself as a mum working full time and those pressures?
Oh, so hard. So very similar to you. So my daughter was 10 months when I went back to work, and I work in London for a newspaper. So I felt a lot of pressure going back to work and proving myself that I wasn't just a mum. I was I was part of this business. I was a contributor. I did go back 4 days a week, so I felt like I had to work even harder because my responsibilities hadn't been reduced by 20%. I just had to cram it all into 4 days.
Yeah.
So I found that really difficult. And then I found the guilt of having to send my daughter to nursery 4 days a week, and dropping her off at 7 o'clock in the morning so I could get a train into London, not picking her up till kind of 6 o'clock at night. And and like you said, and all the other mums that I kind of started my NCT course were like, oh, my little baby's doing this, that, and the other, and we've made these, and we did this. And I was just like, oh my God, I literally saw my daughter for maybe 3 hours last week. And it was really difficult because having that pressure from both sides of the equation, as in a working mum, proving yourself that you're not just a working mum, you're a serious kind of competitor, if you like, in this organisation that wants to succeed and still wants to have a career, but then being judged on the other side that, surely your baby should be the most important person. Why do you even want to think about having a career? It's finding that balance. And I found that quite difficult at the start because I felt like I didn't really have a true identity. I wanted to be a mum, but I also wanted to have a successful career. And there's no kind of real in between. No,
100%. I can remember picking my son up from nursery, and I think it was, I kind of thinking I need to get to the nursery before 6 o'clock, which I always did. But I picked him up and he was asleep, and the lady that handed him over to me was like, I guess pleased him. She goes, oh look, he's gone to sleep and you can have a nice relaxing evening. And I can remember taking him out the car seat and he was still asleep and thinking, well really, and I know he's had his meal, but feeling such a bad mum of like, to bed and thinking my son's not seen me all day, and having that pressure. And in terms of identity, in that moment when you're trying to juggle a career and trying to juggle being a mum, and then taking a piece of that day, of that week for self-care and thinking, actually, what I'm eating isn't the best. I'm not very, proactive in looking after myself because my focus is on my child and making my child a nutritious meal and not actually on myself. So how did you find that you was able to work around that, maybe in the early years of being a mum, and juggling self-care around everything else, because it's so intense? And I totally hear it. When you're working for a company and you're wanting to be a leader, but you're wanting to be mindful to keep that balance, I guess, at home too.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was my worst enemy as well, in terms of my husband was always really encouraging about me having time to myself, whether that's to exercise, to, go shopping, to, just sit in a room and read a book. He's amazing in terms of understanding that I need to have my time to do my thing. But I would almost kind of like, well, I don't want to spend time away from my family. And I had that guilt as well. So I taught myself out of going to the gym or doing anything kind of like for my own mental health, because I almost thought like, oh, I'm missing out. You guys are going to be having a lovely time together, and I'm going to miss out on that family bonding moment.
Yeah.
And I think the moment I realised that actually, for the benefit of not only me, but this family, I've got to have some time away to do stuff for myself. And it took me a long time to really kind of like, for that to sink in. I would say a good couple of years of being a mum before I was prepared to have an hour away, and, maybe even longer before I started enjoying that time and not feeling guilty. But now it's, I absolutely have to have a certain amount of time a week where I exercise. Mentally, for me, it just changes everything. I feel so strong after doing some exercise. I feel like I can handle anything. And it's helped me so much. It really, really has, particularly through kind of lockdown and stuff like that, just having a bit of control, I think, where everything else is spiraling out of control. Having an hour a day to exercise 5 days a week has just been a godsend for me.
It says in that release, and I've spoken about running quite a lot. At the moment I can't run, but walking for me at the moment is is such a godsend, and I'm able to go out and surrounded by gorgeous woods and forests. I'm quite lucky in that sense. Having that space, I guess, just to be on your own with your own thoughts, and just to process everything that is going on is just a great thing to be able to do, and not to feel that mummy guilt, not to feel that. And I've had moments where I've picked my son up from nursery and I've gone straight to the swimming pool with my son, and we've been in like a splash pool, just to think, right, okay, Claire, you've done the being at work, and now you need to do this. Let's tick the boxes. So if you just want to talk me through what your life was like before you had children, in terms of routine and your relationship with food. So before, I guess, you got to the point where you felt that you could commit to your weight loss journey. If you just want to give me a bit of an insight into what life was like for you then.
Yeah, so my husband and I both work in London. So we were up very early in the morning. We'd be getting that, really early train into London. And I would say we probably, 2 or 3 times a week, we'd be meeting up after work for dinner, for drinks. We were living our best lives. And I work in media, so it's very, very sociable, lots of kind of, whining and dining, if you like. And it was just a lot of drinking, a lot of eating, and just really, no real plan in terms of, the plan was just to, let's see where the week takes us. And then weekends, it would be a bit more chilled because we live outside of London, but it would definitely be, let's get a takeaway Saturday night, let's have a box set marathon on Sunday. And it was all, it was just very, very social. So there was no room really for kind of being healthy, if you like. So we both exercised quite a bit, but we were just eating and drinking like it was going out of fashion. So it didn't matter how much exercise I did. What I was consuming was just ridiculous. So obviously when I got pregnant with Isla, that kind of obviously changed everything for the social side of things. But I was still definitely eating, and then it was just like, well, I'm eating for 2 now. And it was kind of like, I'm going to enjoy my pregnancy and give my baby what she wants. So, I put on a lot of weight when I was pregnant. One of the main drivers for me losing weight is when I was born with a dislocated hip, which was treated and, was absolutely fine throughout my childhood and adulthood. When I got pregnant with Isla, obviously it put quite a bit of pressure on my hip, which then resulted in, once I'd had Isla, to become very, very painful. And to basically, I now need to have a hip replacement. So, which, is fine. But at the time I was in my 30s, and the doctor kind of said to me, if you can ride this out a bit longer, that would be better. And, he kind of said to me, like, you're putting so much pressure on your hips at the moment with your weight. It just made me think, like, I'm a mum now. Like, what am I doing? And I think that was when the penny dropped, and I just thought, I'm so overweight. I've stopped taking my child swimming and doing things like that. I've started saying no to loads of social events because of how I feel. And it just didn't really feel fair. I felt like I was letting Isla down. And then obviously with the news of my hips, I was just like, I've got to get some control here because, you know, not only just to prolong having to have a hip replacement, but I was in agony. You know, I was just really struggling just in general to kind of walk around. I couldn't run around the park with my daughter. I was just always in pain. And then a couple of weeks later, there was a picture. There's a couple of pictures that kind of just, it was like, oh my God, this is it. I look so disgusting. And, you know, I've just kind of eaten my emotions.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just physically, mentally, it's got to stop. So in the second week of January, I joined Slimming World and I vowed that this is it now. I've got to get some control for my own health. And, you know, for the sake of my daughter as well. I want her to have a really kind of positive outlook on food, on exercise, on, you know, I don't want her to struggle with her weight like I have, basically. That would be my worst nightmare.
And it's funny, isn't it, how when it's just ourselves, and obviously we've got the partners and family, and we socialise, we have all those fun times. When it's ourselves and we try and commit to weight loss, it's a different story to when, I guess, you have children, especially young children. And a lot of people that have been on the podcast have expressed that definitive moment where something changes. And I'm so pleased that moment came for you. I guess you can relate to those moments where you have joined a group or you have gone on a plan and you have committed, but maybe that's wavered out after maybe a month or two. What was actually like going to group knowing that you'd got this already? It was already in the bag.
Felt brilliant. It definitely felt different, and I felt in control. And I remember just thinking, I'm not going to think about the big number. I'm going to break it down. And, you know, I remember setting my target weight and not having a clue how to even set it, because I don't know what I look like it or feel like it that weight. You know, I don't know if I've got the right shape to be that, you know, 8 stone or 7, you know, who knows? And, you know, sometimes when I look at people on and they'll be like, oh, I weigh this much. And I think, my God, you look absolutely tiny. How on earth are you like 11 stone? But, you know, they're obviously really tall or loads of muscle and things like that. So I didn't set my target weight for a long time, actually. And I just thought I set myself smaller targets in terms of, we booked a holiday to Dubai, which I was going to in August. And I thought I want to be a couple of stones down by the time I go to Dubai. And that felt achievable for me. And it didn't feel like, you know, if I'd have said to myself at the start, I want to lose 6 stone, it just would have felt ridiculous and so out of reach. So I think that's really worked well for me. I've set myself these small goals over a period of time and just, you know, consistently set them. So once I'd done that for Dubai, it was like, right, I want to lose another stone before Christmas. And that's what's worked for me, not thinking about that big number. And as I've lost more and more weight, I've felt, right, this is kind of a nice weight for me now. I want to just lose an extra half a stone or a stone. And that's when I set my target, when it was always about how I felt. Yes. Rather than the number on the scales, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And what changed in terms of your own self-talk? So what was Kirsty telling herself on repeat before this definitive moment? What kind of negative self-talk was you giving yourself compared to now that you joined group and you was 100% in that zone?
I think previously I just think I convinced myself that, like, I wasn't that much overweight. You know, I was squeezing myself into, you know, clothes that didn't really fit me, but still being like, you know, loads of people that are bigger than I am. And I think I just had this illusion that, you know, I wasn't as big as I was. And it's only really now looking back on the pictures, you know, because I used to just avoid the camera. I'd always be the person at the party that was taking the photos. I would never be, you know, I'd never allow myself to be in that many pictures. I would always wear black, you know, I'd keep a coat on or something like that. I was always very good at kind of disguising my weight, you know, keeping my arms covered and things like that. And then finding a little corner to sit in. So if I was photographed, you know, I was behind a table or, you know, things like that. So yeah, I just think I was in complete denial the state I'd kind of got myself into. And it wasn't until that doctor's appointment where they basically kind of laid it on the line for me that I was just like, oh my goodness, like what on earth am I doing to myself? I'm in so much agony, and I could make it better if I just lose some weight, which then inevitably ticks all the other boxes about, you know, feeling more confident and, you know, setting a better example to my daughter. And now, you know, obviously we go swimming all the time, and I feel more confident, and I'm not always behind the camera. I'm happy to be in front of it now. I'm buying clothes that I'd never dreamt I'd be able to buy and always dreamed of. And I think as I've gone through my diet or you know, the change in me, I've just started thinking I've worked so hard to get here. It's not worth messing it up because I've worked so hard. And you know, and I think as well, like a diet is for life. You know, you see people that are doing these diets where cut out everything, and you know, they can't eat this, they can't eat that, they can't eat that, or they do milkshakes. And do you know what? I'm not disrespecting that at all, because you know, you find a diet that works for you. But this, for me, Slimming World is a diet forever.
Yeah.
You know, it's never just a quick fix. You know, and I get people do that if they've got, you know, a wedding coming up or an event, and that, you know, it is the quickest way to do it, and that makes complete sense. But for me, it's about, this diet is forever. It's not just until I lose weight. You know, when I get to target, I'm just going to revert back to eating normally. This is it now. This is my forever. This is always how I'm going to eat and how I'm going to behave. And I think accepting that as well has really helped, and finding a diet that works for my lifestyle, that I can still have a drink.
That's right.
I can still eat carbs. You know, I don't feel like I'm missing out. I don't feel like I'm on a diet.
No.
Which is why I think, you know, this particular Slimming World really works for me.
I think the food that you can have on the plan, and I guess I feel like I'll repeat it again, but there's nothing really that you can say, I can't have this on this plan.
Yeah.
Maybe in terms of the quantities, but even then, you know, having followed the plan for so long, that if you've got something coming up, like a night out with friends or a weekend, you know that you can plan. And even if you tell yourself, right, okay, I've got a weekend away with my husband or something like that, or a holiday away, whatever happens on those scales, it's fine, because I can get back. So there's no, what I'm saying is, there's no narrative that you have to tell yourself that will make you think, I can't do this won't work for me. And I think, you know, when you mention those plans or those diets where you have to cut out a particular food group, that for me would make me want that more. That would make me crave that more. And I'd be so stubborn. Even if I had all the best intentions, I know myself, and I know that I would make sure that food group would get back in, and that wouldn't work for me.
Yeah, completely. And you know, you're absolutely right. It's like the forbidden fruit, isn't it? The more people say you can't have it, the more you crave it. You know, I couldn't, you know, a couple of my friends have done the no carbs diet, and it's worked fabulously for them. I just can't not live without. I couldn't not have carbs. I just couldn't do it.
A life without pasta would have been no life for me. That's for sure.
Exactly. I think I'd rather be fat.
Exactly. That would be no life. And I can imagine, you know, you're going shopping in London, of all the places to shop, London, that must be amazing. And what was it like? What was the experience of being able to shop? And I know that you've lost quite a few dress sizes. So you started out a size 16 to 18, and you're now a size 10. I know what it's like to shop as a size 18 to 20 compared to when I've been at my lowest size 12. That shopping experience is totally different. So how did you find it? What was it like?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like, still now, it's just the most amazing feeling, and, you know, continues to motivate me. And I've ordered a few bits, you know, and they've come through, and I've picked them up and thought, oh my gosh, these are tiny, these are never going to fit, and they fit. And it's so bizarre, and it's so strange. And I think mentally I've not caught up with how much weight I've lost, if that makes sense. I think physically I'm where I am, but mentally I'm still very much the fat girl.
Right.
The fat girl that's lost weight, but I still see myself. I can't quite shift that persona that I've given myself and that label that I've had for so many years. And I still pick up clothes and think, well, this isn't going to fit. This is ridiculous. You know, it says it's a size 10, but it's a size 6, and I'll pop them on and they'll fit. And I'll, you know, but then I'll think to myself, oh, it must be a big size 10, you know, or I'll convince myself that. So I think mentally I've still got to catch up with my weight loss, and I'm trying really hard to do that. But, you know, like we said at the start, we're our own biggest critics. You know, my sister-in-law's always saying to me, she pays me so many compliments, and she's always saying, and I'll always say things like, oh, you know, thanks, getting there, or, you know, I'll kind of bat it to her again as if like, you know, thanks for the compliment, but kind of no thanks. And she's always saying to me, like, you've got to take a compliment. And that's one thing I really struggle with. Yeah, really, like mentally, it's very, very difficult. And I think that's one of the hardest things I'm finding now. I think losing the weight in comparison to kind of taking it in and accepting it are two very different challenges. You know, so I still see myself as a fat person. I still look at my body and think, oh, you know, I'm quite negative to it. And I've got to stop doing that to myself, because it's very unhealthy. And it, you know, it's taken away from the success that I've had and how hard I've worked.
Yeah. And I think there's one thing, being able to show yourself self-care and self-love in terms of taking time out of your week to say, right, okay, that's my time. I'm going to the gym, I'm going for a walk. There's that piece of self-care. And then there's the other piece of self-care in terms of really looking at the conversations, those conversations that we're not having out loud, but those conversations that we're having inside when we stand in the mirror and we tell ourselves what we see. And we have that on repeat. And I think when we've had that on repeat for so many years, it's really hard to change that self-talk. We see a lot on social media in terms of people who really talking in depth about the stretch marks on the skin and the folds, you know, when they sit down. We see that, we hear that, and we will give good feedback. We will say, you know, that's fantastic, that's so inspiring, you've really helped me. But in terms of actually really giving that positive self-talk to ourselves, that's a big piece. It's a big piece. And I think in terms of, will we ever get there 100%? Is that a realistic goal? Or is there a way that we can just make those small steps to start? And I think Oprah Winfrey spoke about this in one of her podcasts, where she stood there naked in front of the mirror and she says, you know what, you know, you're a fantastic human, you're amazing, you're gorgeous, but being able to do that, it's a lot, isn't it? It's such a big thing to do, and it's so much easier to give one another compliments than to
my goodness,
do that
so much easier. And when, you know, when a lot of the people on Instagram that I follow share such inspirational pictures of, you know, Instagram versus reality, or, you know, there's always some brilliant pictures on Sundays. It's Self-Love Sunday, where people share the stretch mark pictures or the loose skin, or, you know, the posed versus the reality. And I think things like that are amazing, you know, particularly somebody that's got a daughter as well. I really want my daughter to understand that not everything you see on Instagram is, you know, this, you know, it's not always the reality of life. It's the best part. You know, people don't always share the worst. No. And when I see those pictures, I'm always the first to be like, this is incredible, like, you're so brave, thank you so much for sharing it. But then I can't give myself that round of applause. No. You know, when I look in the mirror and think, like, you know, you've got stretch marks here, you know, I should be thinking, you know, I've got stretch marks here because I produced, you know, a human. I made a life who is, you know, my absolute world. And that's how I should look at things. But, you know, you kind of, you've been brought up in a world where, you know, magazines and there's so much pressure on women to deliver on every aspect of life, isn't there? Yeah. You know, everything. So much pressure on us to tick all the boxes, to be a perfect wife, to be an amazing mum, to be a career-driven lady, to look pristine constantly. And it's tough. It's really hard.
It's really hard, really, really hard. And I can give you so many examples of, you know, the challenges that I've had having a career, especially in quite I would say, like a male dominated environment, and being chosen to stand to represent the company for national, international awards and things like that. It was really, I found that quite difficult, and receiving those compliments, I was being put on a pedestal, and I thought, I'm a single mum. I'm a single mum, and you're putting me on a pedestal, and that feels a little bit uncomfortable. Where do I go from here? And to compare that with my weight loss, and the weight loss that I've had and the weight gains that I've had, I think it's very similar. People, I guess now, looking to me for inspiration for the podcast, just as they're looking to you in terms of inspiration for your weight loss journey. And it's lovely getting that feedback. It's lovely getting that positive feedback. But sometimes it feels like, well, it's just me. It's just me. It's just me showing up being me. But it really is lovely. We need to take a stand and just to recognise our own self-worth. And I've recently done some work with a lady, some life coaching, and we do an exercise where I ask the person to look in the mirror and just describe exactly what you see. And I think just to do that, if anybody's listening, just to do that on your own, and really listen to those stories that you're telling yourself, and just to try and change that narrative, just one sentence at a time. And it's quite revealing as well when you first do that with a client, just to see what is on the other side of that reflection. And it's definitely an eye-opener, and we need to take that time to listen to that internal voice, because you are stunning. And I've looked at the Instagram, and you've made such a healthy change. And the fact that you've lost this weight, in terms of your health, how does it feel now with that weight? Now that weight's gone, I know that you mentioned the hips. Have you had the hip operation or?
So no, I've been able to prolong that for now because I've lost so much weight. So I will inevitably have it, but the fact that I've been able to push that back by at least 2 years, hopefully 3, is great for me. For many reasons. I have more energy. I feel more confident in myself, and I feel like a different person. I genuinely feel like a different person. Like I could take anything on, and I just feel like I'm in a really healthy space mentally and physically now. And I think a lot of that is to do with, when you have like a takeaway, or you have a binge weekend, and you feel it's lovely and it's amazing, but then you feel awful, don't you? And you just feel really sluggish and just like, oh, why have I done that? I feel really like now, and I don't feel like that anymore. I go to bed every night knowing that I've had a really good day, and I've exercised, I've eaten healthily, and I feel like, right, what's tomorrow going to bring? And I never thought when I started 2 years ago that I'd be in this position now. No. It was always my dream, but because I failed so many times before, I just thought I'll never get to, I didn't even know if I could even be a size 10. I've always been very much, I'm very curvy and I've got big boobs. So, even if I lose loads of weight, I'll never be a size 10 because my boobs are too big. But it turns out, again, that was just me kind of making excuses for myself.
Just another story. And it could really touch your day. It's so inspirational, that your story and your journey. If anybody's listening that would like to connect with you on Instagram, would you like to share your Instagram handle?
So I'm slimmingworld_Kirsty Lee.
Brilliant. And what piece of advice would you give to somebody that has been on the, I guess, diet merry-go-round? We've had a really strange year this year, and I think for some people it's been a year where people can really truly focus, but for others, for whatever reason, that's not been there. What piece of advice could you give to those listeners that want to pick up the healthy mantras, that want to start to make healthy changes, and that want to make sure that 2021 is going to be a different year to 2020?
Yeah, so I would say, firstly, just don't put too much pressure on yourself at the start. Make small changes. So I've always exercised since I started, but I would do maybe 2 classes a week if I could. So 2 bits of exercise, if that's going for a long walk, or doing a workout from home for half an hour, and find the exercise that you enjoy doing. There's no good trying to do something that, I'm not a runner. I wish I could be a runner. I love the thought of just being able to, walk out the door and go for a run. For me, that doesn't work. It doesn't inspire me. I don't enjoy doing it. For me, I do either spin classes or body pump. For other people, that's, they're just not interested in that. So find some exercise that you actually enjoy doing. Just really plan what your week's meals are going to be, make them exciting, and, do the shopping based on what you need rather than kind of, which is difficult when you've got kids.
Yeah.
But I think if you've got an exciting menu to look forward to, it kind of it doesn't make you think, oh, let's just get a takeaway, because you've got it all there.
Yeah.
And just, like I said earlier, take it in bite-sized chunks. Don't think about the big number. So whether that's working in 3-month periods or a 6-month period, and focus on that, and don't think about, I've never thought about the total number I wanted to lose. I've always just kind of broken it down into bite-sized chunks, and measure yourself and take lots of pictures at the start, because there's been so many weeks where I've gone to a Slimming World class and not lost anything and been really defeated or had a gain, but then I go home and measure myself and I've lost 3 inches.
That's right.
And ultimately no one's here doing this because they want to be a certain weight. It's about how you look, isn't it, and what clothes you fit into, and how you feel in terms of your health. The numbers are just numbers on a scale. Exactly. So don't be too kind of led by them. I would recommend getting your own Instagram account if you can. Follow as many people as you can to get inspiration on food recipes or just the motivation of seeing the befores and after. Because I never would have believed 2 years ago, looking at my before and afters, that I'd be sharing these pictures. I just thought it was something that somebody else did. Yeah. It was never going to be me that got to share those pictures. And
but you did.
You can. You've just got to commit to it and just think about what your drivers are for doing this. Keep reminding yourself of why you're doing it. So for me, it was about, setting a good example to my daughter about exercise and being healthy, and obviously getting some weight off my hips so I wasn't in agony all the time.
I know, you do such a good job. I mean, that in itself, take away everything else, but that the fact that you're not in that pain anymore is just speaks for itself. So thank you so much for spending that time with me for the interview. It's been an absolute pleasure, and take care and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Claire. Really nice to talk to you.
And to think, the episode with Kirsty, the same narrative is there, that Kirsty still sees herself as a fat person. And this isn't something new that a guest has explained to me during the podcast episode. This is quite common. And I think the diet industry really needs to connect with this side of the weight loss journey, with the story of, okay, these people have lost weight, but they don't see it when they look in the mirror. There's a big piece missing, I feel, in the diet industry that's not really talking to that person that's been on that weight loss journey, that's followed it through from A to Z. They've got the weight off, they're in a healthy BMI, here's your awards, well done. That should not be where the sport ends. There should be something in terms of, okay, so now you've lost the weight, now you're in a healthy BMI, let's work towards your mindset. Let's exercise on a regular basis the self-talk that will allow you to recognise that a transformation has taken place. I don't feel that piece is there, for sure. You'll hear lots more from me around self-talk, around self-love, and this is certainly fitting on Valentine's Day. And if you're new to Slimming Stories, please hit subscribe wherever you download your podcasts, because that will help me climb the podcast charts. So send in your virtual hugs on Valentine's Day. Until next time, have a great week and take care.